Okay.
That's when we know we're live. Is when it goes up there.
Should move it down a little bit so you can see, so we don't look like Tyrannosaurus Rex. We cut off our hands and we're just like, I learned that in a poetry world. If you have it
Okay,
too low, you're like, no, no.
we're live.
Oh, there I am. Hello.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Take Two. Got with me Brian. Originally, it was going to be Brian's wife, Alex, who was going to be here, but she's got some work to attend to,
Yes.
so she was not able to make it. One of the things that I want to do, the reason I've asked Alex and the reason we had Jillian a few weeks back, is because I do want to have a woman's voice in this conversation. And I've asked other women as well, part of our community. So some of you are saying, well, why don't you ask so and so? I may have, and they may have declined. So um, I am asking a lot of people to be a part of this and seeing which ones want to. Um, but I do want a variety of input with those things. I just text Randy today, and he was saying his wife Brianna wants to be a part of Take Two, kind of step back into things. So that's exciting
Cool.
for her want to be involved again. And so, just to give you a little bit of idea of who do I bring on here, it's people who I'm in conversation with, people who I think are going to bring some broader understanding of the things I say. Right, I'm not just picking people who will, repeat what I say, but give a little bit of nuance to it. And I always love my conversations with Brian. He's got this little artistic flair that he throws in there, that just again kind of comes from a different, oh man, that seemed like from left field, but it opens up a whole new ball game.
New
And so
doors. Yeah.
so
Same.
I love those things, and that's what we really want is to get that conversation to spread out, so that we can have the views and understand that this is something we're trying to live into all
Yep.
together. As we're talking, a few things I want you guys to keep in prayer. We've been lifting up Gil's sister-in-law Helen for the past few weeks. She's not doing well, and so lift Helen, the Escalera family, up in prayer. Um, that's all I'm going to say right now, but it's not good, and they're not in a good situation. And with COVID, it just makes it so much more difficult because you can't be with the people you love at the time when it's most important, or one of the times when it's most important. So be praying for them. Also, I just received a text from Ted that his daughter Shannon has been taken to San Antonio because her oxygen level is at a 78, and that's not good. It should be in the 90s. And so be praying for her that her oxygen level is able to come back and that there are no problems, serious problems with her lungs. One more request is for the Hernandez family. Many of you know Manny Hernandez. Ralph Hernandez passed away not too long ago. I got a message from Alyssa Hernandez, Manny's niece, this morning, and Manny passed away early this morning. And so be praying for the Hernandez family as they have to again deal with this loss in their family. Hard things, sad things to have to go through, but it is happening. And I don't know all the information regarding Manny. Why? I know that Amanda, his daughter, texted me earlier in the week or last week saying that his blood pressure was really low. She didn't go into detail as to why, but she did share that it was really low and they were having a hard time doing some of the things they needed to get his blood pressure up. And so that's all really I know. But important things to pray. In fact, I just want to pause with all this and pray for these families at this time. Lord, we lift up each of these families and the difficulties and tragedy, hurt that they are experiencing right now, and pray that you would surround them with people who can comfort them, support them when they are needing support, and guide them in a place that will bring healing and restoration to their lives. I pray for Shannon and pray that her lungs are able to recover completely and she's able to get the oxygen levels she needs, Lord. And I do lift up the Robinson family and pray for your peace to reign in their hearts and minds as well through this time. And we do ask these things in your name, Jesus. Amen. You know, I mean, gosh, kind of a crazy way to start a podcast, but in some ways, maybe it's a good way. Last Sunday, I concluded my Grace and Truth series, and it was really about speaking the truth in love. That was kind of the focus of it, talking from Ephesians. And so, you know, there's so much more that could be said about this. I'm still living into it, learning it. But I wanted to kind of tie it up a little bit and give some ideas to it. And so that's what I tried to do Sunday. But let me throw the ball over to you and to your court, because I want to hear more from you, not more of what I already said.
Yeah.
So
We'll do a little recap for people that missed it, or maybe just a quick intro for maybe someone joining us for the first time.
Yeah.
This is like just to entryway, and then I'll jump in.
yeah, I mean, what we've been talking about is kind of what's up here on the board, where there is a quadrant of grace and truth that's a high level of grace and a high level of truth. It's not a balancing one or the other, but it's both of them together that we see displayed in Jesus. And we talked about how Jesus did that with Peter. We talked about how Jesus did that with the woman who was caught in adultery. And we've talked about the other quadrants, like the call out is a high level of truth, but a low level of grace. It's kind of like calling out someone's faults, pointing out just the things that are true, but not really helping them along, right? Where call in quadrant is journeying with, that this definition of grace isn't just unmerited favor. It is relational journeying with love. Hangout is really just not wanting to rock the boat, being afraid to be real, because real is vulnerable, and sometimes being vulnerable costs too much.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of a high level of grace, low level of truth. And again, we see that the difference between hangout, call out is really journeying with, leading, and helping alongside. And then checkout is just when you say, yeah, neither one of these working for me, I'm just done. And you just throw it in.
Let go. Yeah.
Hanging out.
Check out.
Yeah. And I think, gosh, I've been in checkout a lot throughout this pandemic, right? And you can, man, I can go through all of these in one day, you know, without a problem. And so it's not like you just live in one. It's like sometimes
Spaces, like little rooms.
Yeah, you'll find yourself. And that the whole point of this was to be able to see maybe where you're at.
Cool.
And that, you know, interaction with somebody, because it's all relational in these things. And so this final one on truth and love is how we are to engage each other. Right?
Yeah.
It's coming from the passage in Ephesians where Paul says that we are to speak the truth in love, and kind of talking about what that really means. And I shared an embarrassing story, right, of my idea of truth and love is I'm going to tell you the truth about what you're doing wrong, and I'm doing it because I love you, bro.
Right.
And so.
Yeah, I've had, like, oddly enough, side conversations with people who don't go to Genesis, don't know you're talking about this, but just through, you know, the divine connection of the universe and God linking me with certain people, we're talking about exact topics. And if I could maybe add like a simplistic view of what I think where it's easily seen is like either like in a family unit, or maybe you grew up in the church and the church was all like truth, or all grace, and and no truth, you know, or a little bit of, but I think what Paul's talking about and what I think Sam's talking about here is that Jesus was like 100% of both, you know?
Yeah.
It wasn't 50% of truth, 50% of grace. I mean, he's 100% of other things too, love and the fruit, but and the rest of the fruit. But it's like almost like pairing the two together. I had a hard time, like a little bit of a hard time, because when I think about truth and grace, they don't necessarily seem as if they
fit together
or something. You know, like it's like a like I don't think of them as like in the same group. Like when I
Yeah.
think of grace, I think of like love and peace, and but I also know truth is the umbrella in a sense. I didn't see it as like them being as like should be talked about in the same topic, like them
Yeah.
hanging out in the same group in high school.
Yeah.
So when wrestling with it, I mean I love your example of your embarrassing story.
Okay. Solid red.
Yes,
Take two. Take
take
two.
two, take two.
Sorry for the problems. I don't know what happened. Our internet kind of went down. And then Chrome was giving us problems. It was telling us it needed to be updated, so we had to go to Safari. Anyway, a lot of other stuff. But I do want to recap a few things as if we're starting over. One, be praying for the Escalera family, for Gil's sister-in-law, Helen. Things aren't going well with her. Pray for Shannon, Ted, and Margie's daughter, as she's going to San Antonio right now with a very low oxygen level. It's at 78. And then also I mentioned that Manny Hernandez, a good friend of many of you, passed away early this morning. I don't know a lot more detail than that, but those are some things to keep in prayer. And then, again, I don't know when this will come out and if how we're going to, we got about 8 minutes in and then the brakes slammed and we got stuck in 405 traffic.
Okay,
So-
give them the super clip notes.
yeah. So we're tying up the whole Grace and Truth series. We've talked about the different quadrants of, call in is what looks like Jesus. It's a high level of grace, high level of truth. And grace isn't about just forgiveness. It is about walking in relationship with the God who loves you. Truth is not just about information. It is about, again, seeing reality the way God sees it, seeing yourself, seeing others the way God sees you and sees others, and living into that. Checkout is when we just don't care. Hangout is when we want to not be too real, not want to really have skin in the game. We want to be nice. We want to be friendly. It's a high level of grace, but we don't really want to engage in the difficult areas of life. And then call out is where we're all about just telling people how they should be living a certain way. But it's a low level of grace. It's not about journeying with someone. It's really about calling them out on what we see as wrong. And so that's the cliff notes of the last 8 minutes. That's kind of what we did here.
And then Ephesians, that's where you read out of.
Yeah, I read out of Ephesians, and then your wife just texted us now and said that the live stream cut out. And so
Thank you.
back on. Yeah, thanks, Alex. And Alex was supposed to be here, but she has other things to do. But hey, at least she's watching. Appreciate that. She was one of the ones. Maybe that's her right now. But anyway, Brian is here, and we want to again try and get other views and people in this conversation, so it's not just my voice, but getting other voices in here that give us different perspectives on how things go.
Yep.
And so, yeah, I was in Ephesians 4 where Paul is talking about unity and how important unity is, that we are all part of this one body. There is one Lord, one baptism. We are all part of this. And he talks about the truth and love, right? He talks about speaking the truth and love. We are to grow up in every way into him who is the head, into Christ. And so that's what this talk was about, was what is that truth and love? What does it look like? So,
Yes. What does it look like, Sam? And then also I was telling Sam before it cut out that I had a really hard time separating truth and love in a sense, or truth and grace, in a sense that I think that truth is, I saw it as this umbrella that grace and love and peace and the other fruits of the spirit fell under. Truth was like the overarching, but it's very well connected, and all of them need to be working together to experience it. And I think Jesus is like the epitome of that, like the living version, and then we get to see that. But I guess what I was having a hard time with is that even if you are searching for truth and grace, you seem to run into other people who have another idea of what truth and grace is. And you had mentioned a few things, like sharing your story about Tom Howard and how you thought that you were showing him love. And I've had side conversations with people who they said something like, well, you keep on talking about love, Brian. You keep on talking about loving your neighbor. And to me, loving your neighbor means to tell them the truth. And, they'll say something like, I had to tell my friend the truth about abortion. And now we can't, now we're not seeing like as close as we used to be. We don't talk anymore. I had that conversation the other day with someone I care about. And that's been kind of engaging me in conversation. And, and then as she said that, I'm like, isn't that a shame though, that someone that maybe you had influence and a relationship with now, because you decided to share what you thought was love at a time when they may have needed you the most, when they might have needed your ear, or when they might have needed your presence, your caring spirit. Instead, you give them what you thought was the truth. You give them an abortion talk right after that, an abortion. And this isn't to condone abortions or justify it, but there is a quadrant that fits in,
and when we deal with difficult topics, right, like abortion, or I know I talked about COVID a little bit, those aren't things that you can just slam down. This isn't a card game and you say, okay, royal flush, I win.
Abortion.
And this is why, boom, 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 and I win. These are emotional topics that have a lot of that brought into them. Right. When I talked about Tom Howard, and I think, one of the things that I've become aware of is that whenever my truth is accusatory, I don't look like Jesus. Right. That the accuser is not the voice of God, but it's usually my voice. And so if I'm accusing someone of something and doing it in the name of truth, like I did with Tom Howard, hey man, someone saw you drink beer, blah, 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 and again, I love talking about things that make me cringe, of what I did. Hey, just trying to be real. But that accusatory attitude does not look like Jesus. Jesus said, I did not come to condemn the world, right? But that the world through me might be saved. And of course, there's nuance to that. But when we're in this call out mentality, it's very accusing. And that doesn't inspire more conversation. It usually quenches it. And so
I was in conversation before you got here with my friend Andrew, and he said something really cool. He says, like when you have a math book and you learn all the things that math book has to teach, you kind of, that math becomes like a part of you, and then you no longer need the book, And then same thing with history, you could memorize all the wars and all the things that book teaches, and then you're okay without the book. The Bible, because it's living, he says, the more you dive in, the more you realize that you need more of it. It's the opposite. The truth is so layered. And with that said, it's people are looking at things from different angles and views and reading it with a different influence. And that's why it's so important to get in these conversations. That's why it's so important to seek truth with other people, especially people that may not think exactly like you, because that's how the truth sprouts in the middle of this this conversation.
And it's so important, because if it's just how do I think you said that in that poem that I'll have you share later. I think the end thing, truth because it doesn't look like you. Right? That's powerful. How else do you know it's true except that it confronts you? Right. And so I think that's important, having those other viewpoints. That's what God does, I think, to us. That's what's happened even with me in that conversation I had with Tom Howard. I talked about the COVID, and how that I have a hard time. I disagree, because unity and being in truth doesn't mean thinking the same. Right. And I think it's important to see there's a difference between diversity and division. Being divisive doesn't isn't the same thing as having diversity. And I see people who, large churches that are meeting together indoors, close proximity, with disregard to the virus. And I personally know people who have died. I know probably about 5 people who have been hospitalized, even more than that now. I've actually known one person who's died, known 3 others who have died because of COVID, and a bunch that have been hospitalized because of it, right? So for me, that comes across as not taking this seriously, right? But then if I just say that, and that's kind of what I just said Sunday, there's a lot more nuance to this conversation, right? And if you hear that, you might lump me into a news group, okay? Oh, he's with the CNN group, or he's with the Democratic group, or he's with this. We posted a meme with Bernie Sanders here, on the stage. It was just a joke, right? It wasn't, we're not Bernie fans or promulgating Bernie. It was just a meme that's going around. So, but people want to put you in one of the camps. Right. And so I say something like that, and people automatically think I'm thinking this, and this, like they maybe did with you and abortion. Right. Where the truth is, I think we've done so many things wrong. Right. I think businesses should be opened up, and outdoor seating at cafes should be allowed. I think children should go to school. I think there should be mandatory testing for teachers, students who are in school, so that they can be in school. I think that the vaccine should go out to the elderly, 65 and older, who are over 80% of the people who are dying from this. Of course, to health workers and things like that. But there's so many things that I think can be done together. But what I was concerned about was when people look back and they're going to see churches meeting and people dying, it's going to come across as we didn't care. Right. And I don't want that to be what's happening. That's the truth about how I feel about this. But they're still my family.
Yeah.
I disagree with them. I would love to have conversation with them, and this is what I would say, right? And I would hear their feedback and have to digest it, and not just try and call them out on these things, but say, well, is there some way we can do these things together? Because I know a lot of people feel attacked, like their freedoms are being attacked, and I'm not saying they aren't. But I'm really trying to get a nuance to why I'm saying what I'm saying, and how can I hear what you're saying, and make sure that they understand what I'm saying, that it's not CNN or Fox, right? It's not either or,
right?
It's not grace or truth. It's we've got to encompass this together.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's even like different than saying that, because someone may hear you say what you just said right now, and say like, Sam's just making everybody happy. Sam's just, everything's right. Everything's everything. That's what some people could take, and without deep diving. And I was mentioning, I think last week, that I think that's part of the problem. I think that like there's truth in this whole drink, right? And some of us are still scratching the surface, and there's truth there, but some of us are like right here, we're at the bottom and enjoying the things that settled in, and we did the work to get there, and we're like, I'm not just saying I'm saying like you have something that you've been wrestling with, that deeply, and somebody may come in and say like, what do they know, about X? What do they know about this? And you're like, I've sat, with this and wrestled with this for days. I've cried about this. I've laid next to a dying family member and got to this truth. And you read a meme, you read a quote today, and you decided to have a deep thought about it. And then now, you want to come off as truth, So I guess that's what I'm saying. It was really hard because everybody thinks they're telling the truth. And that is not how the truth is gotten to, it's, the truth isn't a thing, it isn't a, like, you can't grab it like that, it's moving to, it's real, it exists,
Yeah.
but it's more than like I think people are people are getting to. So.
Yeah, and we have to, kind of distinguish the different ways we use the word truth, right? 2 + 2 = 4, and it's always going to equal 4. That's true, right? And so that's the way we kind of want to think of truth. Everything has this kind of scientific, precise equation to it. But then we get into topics that are not that concrete, where we're dealing with human beings that are so varied.
Right.
And even, in things like a virus that affects some people differently, some people have it. And, I was on a Zoom call today with a guy who has it and has no,
Right.
no effects of it. And then
That's two truths in one thing.
Yeah.
Is it coronavirus dangerous? Yes. Is it not dangerous? Yes. It's not
Exactly.
dangerous to him. It's very dangerous to him.
Yeah.
And so it's yeah.
And so we have to be able to digest those and
Right.
move forward. And the problem I think we have with that meme mentality, right, is I heard a 30-second, clip on Instagram, and so now I know the truth.
Right.
Right. And so I'll post that and I'll repost that and I'll repost that. And it's one person saying one thing, and it's true about this one person and about what they're going through, but it doesn't encompass everybody.
Right.
And we have to take those things into consideration. And the whole point of Paul using this, it's what is leading us to unity? What is leading us to more conversation, not less?
Right.
Right? I don't mind if someone disagrees with me. I welcome it. It's good for me to hear other viewpoints. My viewpoints have changed, right? From when I talked to Tom Howard to today, to even when coronavirus started and today. I mean, I've gotten more information. I think I'm learning more. I think I'm able to make better, ideas and calculations based on the more information I've received. And so, but how can I now work with somebody together in this? And that's the whole point of truth and love. It's not, here's the truth because I love you. It is, here is what is going to bring us together.
Yeah.
All right. And if we could look at things in that way, or prioritize things in that way, what is going to bring us together, not as what's going to prove me right.
Right.
Because so much of that is ego, right? But what
Yeah.
will actually help us have more conversation.
Correct. And if you missed Sam's talk about Tom Howard, he was in a nutshell, he was a musician that he looked up to, and Tom Howard was seen at a restaurant drinking beer by a friend of Sam, and Sam confronted him and said, you drinking beer has caused some ruckus, and that is wrong, because that's what Sam felt was love at that moment, to tell Tom Howard that he was being wrong. But that's what he thought love looked like at the moment.
Yeah.
But now he's saying that changed for him. And I think that example, leading up to the next example that you gave of your father-in-law or Grandpa Bob allowing you to see
Yeah.
what you look like and what good look like.
Yeah.
That was an excellent way to be able to allow someone to see truth without telling them. So even at that moment, Sam could probably today think of a million ways he could have told Tom Howard or showed Tom Howard that even if he believed that today that Sam thought that beer was wrong or drinking beer in public was wrong, he probably still today could think of other ways to have dealt with that. And I think that's also what we're lacking, that we're
Yeah.
not thinking deeply about how to bring other people to a place where they see or find truth, or a healthy place. We're not willing to wrestle
Yeah.
in a healthy way,
Yeah, and we kind of looked at, even last week with Peter, and how could Jesus call him Satan and tell him to get behind me?
Right.
Except he also told him that flesh and blood did not reveal you. In other words, he was already on the journey, a deep journey
Right.
with him that allowed him to have a more, direct conversation with him.
Yeah.
Right? Here, Tom Howard, who I didn't know from Adam, I just knew because I listened to his albums and liked him,
Yeah.
and kind of, just idolized him. I was a little starstruck by him. And then I'm going to have a conversation with him. I'm going to do the direct talk with you without any dynamics of the other,
Right.
And it's so crazy because I remember when I heard that he passed away, and I was saddened by that news. And the first thing I thought of is what an idiot I was for doing what I did, you know.
Yeah.
And instead of the only conversation I really, or not the only, but the conversation I chose to have with Tom wasn't, man, your music has really touched my life. It's inspired me. I appreciate your talent. I appreciate your gifts. I appreciate how it's affecting so many people. It was, hey, friend saw you drinking a beer, right? And that's, it still like wounds me that was it. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah.
And we all have done some cringeworthy stuff that we could look back and say, wow, like I could handle that way different.
Yeah.
I just told you I had a really poor showing at the playing basketball the other day.
Yeah.
I got into it with somebody. Looking back, I was like, I could have showed him a lot more grace, led him to truth. Instead, I wanted to put hands on him, you know? But it's a constant move towards what, like you said, unity looks like, what love looks like. There is like a progression that grace and truth kind of calls you to.
Yeah.
You know, it's not asking for stagnant, because I think that is there's something about those two words, if not look deeply enough, that yeah, I show him grace and truth every day. Like you could say something like that. You could say like, yeah, that's my friend. He gets grace. I tell him how I feel all the time, you know, but
Yeah.
that's not it. Like you made that clear. There's way more. There's a movement towards a progression and trying to become what Jesus has called us, which is like unified. And
Yeah. You know, the stories I shared about Grandpa Bob and then the other friend I had who the truth starts with us, right? I mean, the truth starts with what do you see of yourself in this dynamic that is able to bring about further, you know, relational connection. And with the example of Grandpa Bob, when he saw me holding my granddaughter Everly, and he just saw a countenance change, and me seeing that, I mean, he saw it as, this is beautiful what I'm seeing here, because I don't see it a lot. He wasn't saying, Sam, you're too serious. Sam, you don't show enough love. And he wasn't calling me out, you know, in those things. He wasn't, hey man, you're not doing this, you're doing this. He's just saying, man, when you're like this is beautiful. And that was calling me into a place where that's where he saw me. He thought it was beautiful. And it illuminated when I'm not there to me, right? And he did it without dealing it directly to me at all, right? And those are the kinds of things that now I'm going to listen, because it's not someone saying I need to do something. It's me recognizing I need
Right.
to do something, right? And that's kind of, I think, what the Spirit does to
Right.
all of us, is there's that revelation of, hey, this is
what beautiful looks like in your life.
yeah, this is it. And then you're aware of, oh, it's not here.
Right.
Right? When I'm acting this way or I'm saying these things, it's not here. This isn't beauty.
It's great.
And so I think, again, it's part of being with someone in the leading to something better.
Right. Communal too.
Yeah.
Like it's impossible, or it shouldn't be done by itself. It doesn't exist without somebody else, you know?
Yeah.
At least one other person. I mean, you can show yourself grace and truth, I guess, but it doesn't, this whole concept is to unify, you know, each other, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, that's the whole point of Paul's writing.
Right.
It's, hey, you're one, you're unity. This is it.
Right.
Speak the truth in love is going to be what brings you to this unity
Right.
of who we are in Christ, how Christ sees us. And if our conversation and dialogue isn't moving us in that direction, then we should put on the brakes and think what can.
Yeah.
Right. So if I'm talking about someone with a hard conversation like politics, you know, and I mentioned one just about the churches and COVID, because that's one of these divisive things, you know, that I've seen and have been, you know, brought to my attention. And I just want, okay, I'll have a conversation with you about it.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not saying, hey, I've got it all together, I've got it all right. This is difficult times, and these aren't easy answers. We don't just, you know, say, okay, I've got it all together. We're journeying in uncharted territory together.
Right.
And so, and we've lost a lot of people along the way, you know, not just literally because of COVID and dying, but even spiritually, people checking out,
Yeah.
people going back into addiction, people separating themselves and falling off the board. I can't tell you how many texts I have gotten since this all started about people just saying, hey, I need help, I need prayer, can you help me, you know, just keep me in prayer because I'm really struggling with this, you know. So how can I further that conversation,
Yeah.
you know, in that way?
I think you made a really good point, at least for, I always hope that someone listening to this can take something, especially if they're in that healthy place and they have people in their life they want to like share truth and grace with. They could take a nugget from what something you say or I say and then apply it to their life. And I think the thing with Grandpa Bob is really powerful. And I think of everything in basketball terms because there's not much I know in life, but I do know about basketball and poetry. So every time somebody tells me something, I start thinking about how it applies in basketball. And I'm a point guard. And if you don't know what point guard is, he's the one that stays in the backcourt and distributes. He's like the nucleus of the game. And when I'm meeting somebody for the first time during like a pickup game or something, part of me getting to know them and part of me leading, because the point guard is a leader, is trying to expose the best parts of their game. So trying to make them, put them in a position to be able to play at their highest level. If I notice that maybe they don't play well deep in the post, I keep them outside and get them running so that I can give them the ball while they're still moving. So I have to recognize things. And I think there's like something that happened with Grandpa Bob, whether intentional or not, with Sam. He recognized something in Sam that that only somebody looking could find, could bring attention to, because you might be able to see what brilliant looks like or what beautiful looks like, even if you're not looking. But the only way that you can teach it and the only way that you can bring it out in somebody is if you're looking for it. And I think that is like really the power in relationship and intentionality when you're sharing truth and sharing the gospel and sharing Jesus with people, is that the investments got to be there. You know, the sales saying that I always bring up is the right information at the wrong time is still the wrong information. Without earning the right to be able to share that kind of beauty with somebody, they're not ready for that. Love at that moment might just be listening, might be lamenting, or allowing them to lament, or allowing them to, you know, spurt out whatever's on their heart, you know. But from that moment, you start seeing them in a different light. You start seeing what beautiful looks like, and you're able to then calculate your moves to be able to help them realize what the most beautiful them looks like. From there, grace, truth, God, all will expose itself. Then, I mean, that part you're doing life with them, and that becomes way more powerful, way more useful. Yeah.
And with all that you just said, I mean, the key, I think, is you have to know that person, right?
Right. Yeah.
If Grandpa Bob didn't know me, he couldn't see those things and the difference.
Yeah.
You know, if you don't know someone, you can't spot those things, and you lose the voice you can have
Right.
in their life. And so that's so important to recognize that this is a part of truth and love, is actually being with someone.
Right.
You know.
Key.
Yeah, and that other story I shared, you know, I know through this time and through the years, because of the role I've taken as a pastor, you know, I get the phone calls in, you know, the night when someone tells me the bad news, you know, my kid's OD'd, or someone's been hit by a car, or, you know, died, or my husband cheated on me, or I mean, there's just so many different things. And getting these things and seeing people go through these things and not being able to remedy it easily.
Right.
You know, when someone goes through some of these hardships, it scars, you know, kind of like ankle, that's still sore to this day from all those injuries years ago. There are things that stay in that way. And when I see someone hurting from those things and I want to speak into their life, if someone has gone through a divorce and it was ugly, their wife had an affair and left him, and now he doesn't get to be with his kids, and he's lost so many things, and he checks out and says, I can't do this anymore. And you start seeing him maybe drinking too much or doing something that's destructive. Going to him and saying, hey, bro, you're doing this, and you're doing this. That's really call out. That's not journeying with him.
Right.
And the story I shared is just being able to go to someone and say, I don't know how to love you the way I need to love you,
Right.
but I want to,
Yeah.
because I know you're hurting and I want to be in this with you.
Right.
Right. That's a big difference,
Yeah.
because now the things that you're doing, those are just symptoms of what's happening.
Yeah.
Right. And I care about what's happening with you. I care about the real you, and truth and love is what cares about the real you.
Right.
Truth and love, or truth and grace. This is all about the center of who you are. This is where we're trying to center our reality with people.
Yeah. And that's what real conversations actually look like.
Yeah.
I think it's really easy for us to get real Christianese and real churchy and say, when you approach somebody especially that's dealing with an addiction or heavy struggle, and you talk to them, it's never, I'll say rarely ever the right thing to do is just to say, like, bro, like the Bible says, like, talk about the worst way to get into like a conversation with somebody that, number one, is not there, it's like we were talking about last week. That thing that Furtick said was like, it in their defense, they should be able to say something like, that it meets a need, and our job as someone that sees their beauty and sees them at their best, all like that's how we want to. That's our pouring guard mentality. Push them towards their best. Should be able to say, okay, I see you because I have the same need as you. I want that need met, but how do we fill it with God and love and Jesus? But I see the need. I see I see what you're trying to fill with that.
Yeah.
And I think that's really cool. And that's probably the step right after you just got done talking about, which is like, start with, I want to be in here with you. Like I want to be in the dark with you. Like, that's where you want to hang for a sec.
Yeah, because we're together in this, right?
Yeah.
That's the unity, definitely. I know you wrote a poem. Did you write it today, or when did you write it?
I wrote it today because I listened to your sermon today and listened to it on Sunday, and it sparked a poem about truth. Because, like I said earlier, I was wrestling with the idea that truth and two people having a conversation could be both talking about what's true in their life, and that thing they both are holding on to most likely is not the truth. When we're talking about Jesus says the truth, and he even says I'm the truth, the way and the truth. If that is the truth, then, and he also says he's a lot of other things. He also says I am, but she didn't like, if I heard somebody say that, I was like, this guy doesn't want to be put in a box, he's leaving it very open-ended right now. And the meaning, the truth is not like very easily captured, and it could mean a lot of things. And I don't think people I'm having conversations with, I don't think they don't believe they're possessing the truth. I don't think that I'm lying to them or myself, but I also believe that truth happens typically, it shows itself when your ego is no longer a part of it, or you're no longer a part of it. When I say that, not your thinking, but your ego self. All right, whatever. Let's read it. I put, I don't have a problem being led. I do have a problem being told where to go by people who have never been. As a protector of words and story, I understand the velocity in which words can leave the chamber. Limp wrist, gunmen aiming at the wind, Thinking deeply about something for the first time doesn't make you philosophical. My squad wrestles with these demons in silent rooms, wearing anxiety on our backs like a child we're trying to return to its mother. We dig to find truth buried under miles of I am rights and listen to me's. The truth sits just below the admittance of I could be wrong, and maybe there's more to this. The truth sprouts as humility drips from your tired lips. You will know the truth when you've touched the truth because you will know it will no longer look like you. And yeah, this sprouted from a bunch of conversations that I've been having through social media. Partially jaded because I don't like having conversations on social media because they're text, and Plato says don't discuss anything. Plato, before there was text messages, he said do not discuss anything of importance through text because there's plenty that could be misconstrued. There's no tone. You can't read body language. You can't look someone in the eye, and these things are very important when talking about things of importance.
Yeah,
So,
totally agree.
Yeah.
Totally agree. Dropping some poetry on us.
Yes.
That's great. I love that. I love how you kind of just really get to some nuance, and saying the truth. I might be wrong, laboring with something, struggling with it,
Yeah.
wearing it instead of hearing it in a soundbite
Yeah.
or a meme. I think as Peter Rollins says, if something can be told in 8 memes, it's not true.
Probably-
Yeah, it's probably not
Probably
true.
true. At least not the whole truth.
Yeah, it's you're
Yeah.
probably not getting to any depth in something that's just blurted out. And we've moved so much in that direction. We've got 140, spaces to fill a whole truth in, and we're journeying in years of life and still trying to figure this out.
Yeah.
And if we don't see how complicated and just difficult things are because people are so varied, how do we expect to grow in the unity?
Yeah, that's why I think there needs to be a north. I think that is where what we're pushing people towards. Like if you move towards love and loving people and serving people, you tend to, even if you disagree, still are able to at least pedal in the same direction, and that's okay. We are trying to get people moving towards the posture of love and loving each other, and I think even if we're disagreeing on what love looks like, at least we're thinking about the same thing. We're trying. We could start that's a really great start.
Yeah.
Because we can't even agree on that we should be loving each other. Then it's like those conversations are the ones that drain me.
Yeah, and love is so central, right? To
Yeah.
I talk about that, just how central it is to the New Testament. The law and prophets hang on this. This is how people will know we're his disciples. This is how God is revealed in us and reveals himself. This is how we pass from death to life. It's all through love.
Right.
It's all through love in that way. And so understanding that and hearing the different voices, I don't know if I shared it at the beginning of our second take two. But at the beginning I said I wanted, your wife was going to be here, but she couldn't be here. And the reason I wanted Alex here and the reason I had Jillian here before, and even Brianna's going to be joining us in the future, is we need a woman's voice. A woman sees things differently than men. Most women, most men. And we've lost so much, I think, in the church by not allowing that voice to be heard throughout the years. And so it's important that gets brought back in conversation. And not only that voice of, gender, but even voice from people of different socioeconomical or people who are different in their ethnic, makeup. You've experienced life in a different way. You can share life from that viewpoint, and we can learn from that.
Right.
And so it's important that it's not. I heard a joke today. What do you call 3 white guys? I think that's it.
What? It sounds like a horrible joke.
Yeah, it says a podcast, because there's so many podcasts. They're just a couple of white guys talking. Yeah, I should have probably not said that one. I didn't have it all worked out. But the point is, we can limit our voice because we think our voice is the only one that resonates, right? Instead of hearing other voices. And it doesn't mean that you're wrong, but maybe there's more depth or color to the things that can be said that can help add a little bit of flavor and development to that conversation.
Yeah.
You know? And we need that. I mean, we've got too many things going on right now that are dividing us.
Right.
Right. And I am in disagreement with so many things that I hear and read, but I still want to love and journey with these people. How do I do that if I don't listen to them and show them that I care more about them than just their view, right?
Right.
If I want to journey with you, I want to show that I love you and that that's the truth. My truth is I really do care about you.
Right.
Right.
That's cool.
Yeah, that's important.
Whenever my brain starts to explode, when I start thinking about what truth is as a whole, or when I think of stuff like this, or like philosophical topics, I try to like really pick something that I really understand really, really well, and then try to see how many truths are in that thing.
Yeah.
Like today I picked sleeping. Like I just imagine like me and another person arguing about sleep. Like one person like agrees that if you get 8 hours of sleep, you're gonna have the best life. Another person says, like, I might say something like, well, I need is 4 hours of sleep and I'm perfectly fine. Like, look at me. Right. And then there's like the truth. There's like a truth laying around, you know, there's a thing that like I have a kid or something, or I have a job that requires me to only be able to sleep 4 hours. There's the nuance that we're talking about, like literally pick anything, like, and just talk about like how many truths are in that thing, and how there is like an underlining thing that has to do with what the importance of that is. You know, like there's like I guess what I'm saying is we got to be careful about not getting caught up in truths that don't lead us to love, like that don't lead us to people and loving people, because then your brain will explode, because there are a lot of truths in everything, you know, but the thing that we know that's tested, that's never been, that's undeniable, is the love of God and the way that changes people. So like, yeah.
You know, gosh, because I grew up in a certain way of thinking in Christianity for so many years. It's just embedded in my mind. And when I hear something like there's all kinds of truth, I immediately put on the brakes. It goes, no, there's one truth, right?
Yeah.
This is what it is. And again, you're taking one little thing and you're trying to make it everything. And it's kind of like when you go to a place where they don't have a lot of something, they only have a few words.
Yeah.
Right. And so if you go to, you know, the North Pole or Alaska and you start talking about snow, you've got sleet, you got hail, you got, you know, all this number of ways of talking about something that they have plenty of. Right. But then you go down to South America and they only have ice, you know, or something like they have this one thing that describes what they have a bunch of up there, because their understanding of it is limited, right? When you have a lot of something, you have to develop a lot of words because one doesn't describe it,
Right.
you know,
Cool.
or even in colors or bananas, like, you know,
Yeah.
well, there's plantains, there's all kind, you know, you can name different things. Why? Because we have a lot of that.
Not only that, but you have knowledge and a desire, you know, to want to have a lot of knowledge. But like, have you ever worked at anywhere that, like wood? You used to work at the wood place. You know way more about wood than anybody would want to know. You know, I used to work at the Red Lobster, and I knew so much about fish and lobsters and snow crab and king crab legs, and the difference and the nuance. And you're like, and then there's like somebody that comes in and is like, just give me the yellow ones. Just give me what do you know, the ones that taste good, you know? And you're like, oh, but you're missing all the richness. I mean, look at the history of, yeah.
History of crabs.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's so true. I mean, and you get so much more out of having more information because now you are able to, again, pick out those things, And
Yeah.
how much more so? I mean, if we can do that with snow, ice, bananas, wood, crab, how much more with people, right? When
Yeah.
there's so many of us grew up in a variety of ways, all our different experiences, genders, ethnicities, social classes, all these things are begging to be heard and understood and walk together. Right. I mean, it's just such a beautiful picture. I mean, Paul in Ephesians, we're the body of Christ. It's like we need each other to bring about this kingdom mentality. And so those things are so important for us to grasp and to strive for, right? And I don't care about being right as much as I care about living right with you. That's what's going to be right.
Right.
And I share this a lot of times in relationships. I've shared it before. If you're, and I tell it whenever I've counseled people, it's more important to be kind in a relationship than to just be right. Because kindness can lead you to working things out.
Right.
Being right, you can end in divorce. Right. It can end in the end of a relationship. Well, I was right. Yeah, you were right till the end, and you push them away.
Yeah.
Right. Where if I'm kind, I can get to us working through the differences and what is true.
Yeah, that's that true north that I think we're talking
Yeah.
about. Like let's start at the north. Let's start the thing we know to be true, which is Jesus, which is love.
Yeah.
Which is let's start there and then see if we could kind of work our way. Work our way through.
Yeah. And we don't have to agree on everything. Guys,
Right.
Right.
Yeah, but let's
Yeah.
can we agree on that? That people deserve love. That
Yeah.
that you deserve love, that I deserve love. If
Yeah.
we can't start there, it's gonna be a really tough conversation.
Yeah. If people aren't created in the image of God, don't have value, aren't worthy of love, then you're gonna have problems.
Yeah, then it's no longer a conversation. That might be the argument.
Yeah.
Or that might need. Yeah. So again, and then even then, I mean, the relationship part's still really important because they can't see what love would look like. I mean, you're going to be an evidence of that love, if nothing else.
Yeah.
And who else? Like I got really bad habit of when I hear people say if you don't like what I'm posting, delete me, and I take their invitation. I'm so into it, and now looking back, I'm like, I could be better about that because that just kind of, I was just bitter or something.
Yeah.
But I just think in my head okay, if we can't even meet at I just have I've been in checkout mode. That's telling Sam. I'm in the checkout box. That's Brian box. Just because I've been having so many conversations and I just need to protect my own energy. So be aware if you're in that realm to make sure that you're able to find people to recharge with. Find people that you're able to have healthy conversations with, even if you don't agree with everything. At least start with healthy and then move into the difficult conversations because I think that's needed too.
Yeah.
The truth of that.
Totally agree. Yeah, I've checked out on social media. I was actually thinking about it today. It'd probably be good to check in a little bit more. I don't know. Have to wrestle that one through. But
Yeah.
Anyway, any final thoughts you have that you'd want to share? We covered quite a bit.
We did. Talked a lot. How long would go?
48 minutes. And that was not counting the other 8 minutes.
Another
that
8
we
minutes. So
started.
we're at a
Yeah, we're
dead,
like 56.
solid hour.
Yeah.
I think I'm good. I shared everything.
I think so too. Again, thank you, Brian, for
Thank you.
joining in, and thank you guys for listening and watching. This is uploaded now. Gil does upload it on our podcast, so you can hear us there if you can't, watch it, and appreciate that. Again, all these things are trying to help us be disciples of Jesus.
Yes.
Right? What it looks like. And even if you don't believe in Christianity, you can still be a disciple, right? You can still be a person who learns how to love. And that's really what we're talking about. Someday I'll have to do a talk on Christ and Jesus, but that's another conversation.
You thought they were the same thing. Some of you guys are like, what do you mean?
Jesus is the Christ, but the Christ is more than Jesus.
It's going to get there.
But yeah, I thank you so many. I mean, I got a lot of feedback from Sunday of people really appreciating that, hearing those things. And I know when I get that, I know that there's usually also the other where people, don't like maybe something or disagree with something I say. And that's where, hey, let's talk. Maybe I did say something that could be nuanced better or clarified. I don't doubt that. I didn't say everything that needs to be said about this by all means. So
right. It's only going to make Sam better. Don't flood him with text messages about how much you didn't like it, but do share with, help him grow, help us grow. Share the message with somebody too.
Yeah, appreciate it, and subscribe, because if we get 1,000 subscribers, we can do this much easier. We only got like 900 to go.
That's only need 900.
Oh yeah, I think we got over 100, but
everybody told 9 friends we would be there by next week.
Yeah, that's it. Just tell them to subscribe. They don't even have to listen to us. Just need to subscribe.
Yes. Oh, and we're still doing the pay it forward movement thing.
Yeah, have we figured that out yet?
We're really trying to figure out what a pay it forward movement could look at, like starting with Genesis. Obviously, it's kind of been done, and we're not trying to reinvent the wheel, but we are trying to find maybe verbiage behind it and ideas. So send them to info@thegenesisstory.com if you have any.
Yeah, we're just trying to spark encouragement and connection with one another, and so yeah, definitely do that. You said that, and something jumped on in my mind as well, but it'll come to me later. Anyway, thank you guys for
thank you
watching us, being a part of our community. We love you guys. Again, we miss you, and we'll let you know when we're going to start gathering together in person. It'll probably be outside. We'll set some canopies up there, and we hope to be able to do that here soon. Maybe next month, into next month is what we're thinking. So love you guys, miss you. God bless. Take care.
Bye.